1. The patient who wasn't on the floor. Night shift in a hospital feels different from the day. During the day, there's noise, voices, movement, life. At night, it's just machines breathing for people. Around 2:30 a.m., the cardiac floor of a large hospital in Ohio was almost completely silent. Most patients were asleep. Lights were dimmed. Only the steady hum of monitors and distant footsteps broke the stillness. Nurse Elena had been working there for 5 years. Nothing really shook her anymore. She'd seen death, resuscitations, families collapse in hallways. After a while, it all blended together. That night, she was charting at the nurse's station when she heard something. A cough. Not a normal cough. A deep, wet, struggling cough. The kind you hear from someone with severe heart failure. She looked up. The cough came from the end of the hallway. Room 218. She frowned. Room 218 was empty. It had been empty for 2 days after a patient named Mr. Halpern passed away quietly in his sleep. No trauma, no code, just gone. She stood up anyway. Hospitals are full of strange noises at night. Machines glitch. Air moves through vents. Sometimes families sneak into empty rooms to cry. As she walked toward 218, the hallway felt colder. Not freezing, just wrong, like the temperature dropped a few degrees for no reason. Then she heard it again. That same wet cough, coming from inside the room. She pushed the door open slowly. The lights were off, but moonlight from the window faintly lit the bed. Empty, sheets folded, bed made. But the IV pump beside the bed suddenly beeped. Elena jumped slightly. The screen flickered on. It displayed a message. Line occlusion. Her stomach tightened. There was no IV line connected. No patient. Nothing attached. She stepped closer and pressed the power button. The machine shut off instantly. The room went silent again. She exhaled slowly, feeling foolish. Just a glitch, she thought. Then she heard breathing, not hers, slow, labored, right beside her. She turned toward the bed. For a split second, just long enough to register, she saw the shape of someone sitting there, a faint indentation in the mattress. The outline of shoulders hunched forward, head tilted slightly like an exhausted patient trying to breathe. Then it was gone. The mattress slowly rose back to normal. Elena didn't scream. Nurses rarely do. Instead, she backed out of the room and closed the door quietly. When she returned to the nurse's station, an older nurse looked at her face and said softly, "You went into 218, didn't you?" Elena stared. "But yeah." The older nurse nodded slowly, like she already knew. "That's his time," she said. "Every night around 2:30. He used to cough like that before he died." After that, Elena refused to enter that room alone during night shift. And for months, every night around the same time, the cough returned. The elevator ride. Marcus works security at a children's hospital in Texas. Night security is mostly boredom. Watching cameras, walking quiet halls, drinking too much coffee. But around 3 a.m., the hospital always felt different. That was the hour when even the machines seemed quieter, when the halls stretched longer than they should, when the building felt like it was holding its breath. Marcus was doing his routine camera checks when he noticed something. Elevator 3 had been called to the pediatric floor. No badge swipe, no staff nearby. Just called. He watched the camera feed. The elevator doors opened on the pediatric oncology floor, where long-term and terminal kids were treated. The hallway was empty. Then someone stepped inside. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, hospital gown, bare feet, head slightly down. Marcus frowned immediately. Kids weren't allowed to wander alone at night, especially oncology patients. He picked up the radio. "Unit 4 to pediatrics, you got a kid walking the halls, barefoot, just entered elevator 3. Static. No response. He watched as the boy stood perfectly still inside the elevator, not pressing any buttons, not moving, just standing there. The doors closed. The elevator began descending. Marcus kept watching. Floor 5, floor 4, floor 3. When it reached the main floor, the doors opened. The elevator was empty. Marcus leaned closer to the monitor. He rewound the footage. Watched again. The boy entered. Stood still. Doors closed. Elevator descended. Doors opened. No one walked out. He felt a slow chill creep up his spine. He radioed again, this time more urgently. Check pediatric oncology. Any missing patients? A few minutes passed. Then a nurse responded, confused. No missing kids. Everyone accounted for. Marcus hesitated before asking the next question. Can you check your recent memorial board? Silence. Then footsteps over the radio. Papers moving. A minute later, the nurse came back. Voice quieter. Why? Marcus swallowed. Just check. Another long pause. Then she spoke again, barely above a whisper. There's a photo here. A boy. Passed last month. Leukemia. Marcus closed his eyes. Barefoot? He asked. Silence on the radio. Then, yeah. After that night, Marcus avoided watching the elevator cameras between 2 and 4 a.m. because sometimes the elevator still gets called from that floor. And sometimes someone small still steps inside. The new hospital that was never empty. I used to think only old hospitals were haunted. You know, the ones with peeling paint, long histories, and decades of death inside their walls. The kind where people expect strange things to happen. But the hospital I worked at was brand new. Fresh paint, new equipment, bright floors that still smelled like polish. It had only been open a short time, and when I started working there, no patients had even died yet. Everything felt modern and clean, almost too clean, like nothing bad had ever touched the place. At least, that's what we thought. Then one of my coworkers started digging into the land the hospital was built on. Before construction, the area had been part of a massive farm dating back to the 1800s. According to old maps and property records, the exact spot where the hospital now stood had once held slave quarters. Not the main house, not the fields, the quarters, where dozens of people had lived, suffered, and died. Once we learned that, things that had seemed small before suddenly started feeling connected. It started with little things. Call buttons going off in empty rooms. At first, we blamed electrical issues. New buildings always have bugs, but it kept happening. Always in rooms with no assigned patients. You'd hear the soft ding echo down the hallway and glance up at the board. Room empty. Lights off. No one inside. Someone would go check anyway. Every time, the room would be completely empty, but the call light would be glowing, like someone had pressed it and was waiting. Then there were the TVS. On one floor, we had a small waiting and sitting room. Nothing fancy, just a few chairs, a coffee machine, and a mounted television for staff or family members who needed a quiet place to sit. More than once, we'd walk past and see the TV on. Not static, not glitching, actually on, playing whatever channel it had last been set to. The weird part was that the remote was always sitting on the table exactly where it should be. No one around, no one coming or going. You could stand in the doorway and feel it sometimes, like you just walked into a room where someone had been sitting seconds earlier, but there'd be no one there. At first, we joked about it. Ghost wants coffee. Someone's watching late-night shows. You laugh when things don't make sense. It's easier that way. But then I started seeing people. The first time, I was walking down a long hallway toward the supply area. I saw a man ahead of me near the corner. Average height, wearing what looked like dark clothing. Nothing unusual. I remember thinking he must have been a maintenance worker or maybe a visitor who got lost. He turned slightly like he noticed me coming. Then he walked around the corner. I turned the same corner maybe 2 seconds later. No one there. No doors opening. No footsteps. No place he could have gone that quickly. I stood there for a moment, confused, then shook it off and kept working. But it happened again weeks later. This time it was a woman. I saw her standing near a doorway at the end of another corridor. She looked completely normal, solid, real, like any staff member. She even had that tired posture people get during long shifts. I remember thinking I should ask if she needed help. I blinked. She was gone. Not walked away, not turned a corner. Gone. Like someone had erased her from the frame of reality. That was the moment I stopped laughing about the stories. I wasn't the only one seeing things either. Multiple employees talked about a misty shape that appeared in a stockroom. People described it differently. Sometimes like fog gathered into a rough human shape. Sometimes just a darker mass in the air. But everyone agreed on one thing. It didn't move like normal mist. It stood there. More than once, someone would walk into that stockroom and immediately walk back out because the air felt wrong, heavy, watched. Then there were the whispers, soft enough that you couldn't make out words, just faint voices where there shouldn't have been any. You'd turn, expecting someone behind you. Nothing. The most unsettling experiences, though, happened to a girl in housekeeping. She worked nights cleaning the operating rooms. Because of sterile protocol, she had to fully scrub in every time. Scrubs, mask, gloves, shoe covers, hair cover. The OR area required badge access, and entry logs tracked everyone who came in and out. She had a dedicated cleaning cart stored inside that secured area. Every night she'd badge in, get dressed properly, pull out her cart, then go inspect the first OR before bringing the cart fully inside to clean. That's when things started happening. She told me that many nights she'd leave her cart in the hallway just outside the room while she stepped in for a quick inspection. Nothing long, maybe 30 seconds. When she came back out, all of her tools would be laid out neatly on the floor beside the cart. Not scattered, not knocked over, lined up. Mops, sprays, cloths, everything placed side by side like someone had carefully organized them. At first she thought someone was messing with her, but badge access logs showed no one entering that area. No one leaving, just her. It happened again and again and again. One night she texted me a photo. It was a powered-off computer screen inside the OR area. The black screen reflected the room behind her like a mirror. Her message said, "I feel like someone is watching me. Can you check this on Photoshop and see if I'm just paranoid?" I opened the image on my computer. At first I saw nothing, just the reflection of equipment and dim lighting. Then I enlarged it, brightened it, adjusted contrast. Slowly, shapes started forming in the reflection. 3 faces, faint, barely visible, but distinct. They weren't reflections of anyone in the room with her. They were positioned behind where she had been standing, in a place where no one else was physically present. They looked like they were watching. I remember staring at my screen with chills running down my arms. I sent the edited image back to her without saying much. She quit soon after. No dramatic goodbye, no long explanation, just said she couldn't work there anymore. The hospital still looks bright and modern on the outside. Patients and visitors see a clean, new building with nothing but fresh paint and polished floors. But those of us who work nights there know something else. That building was never empty. Not when the halls were quiet, not when the TVs turned on by themselves, not when figures walked corridors and vanished into thin air. Whatever stood on that land long before the hospital was built never left. And sometimes, late at night, it still walks the halls like it's waiting for something that never came. Damien never missed a shift. Cardiac surgery has its own rhythm. If you've ever worked around it, you know what I mean. Everything runs on precision and timing. Instruments must be sterile. Trays must be exact. There's no room for mistakes when someone's chest is open on an operating table. Our cardiac surgery department had its own dedicated instrument processing area, tucked behind double badge access doors at the end of a quiet hallway. Most people didn't go back there unless they had a reason. It wasn't a place for visitors or casual conversation, just stainless steel counters, sterilizers, carts of surgical tools, and the constant low hum of machines cleaning and preparing instruments for the next procedure. That's where Damien worked. He was one of those people everyone liked immediately. Friendly without trying too hard, always smiling. The kind of guy who remembered your name, even if you only spoke once. He worked fast, kept things organized, and treated the surgical instruments like they were something sacred, which in a way they were. He was only in his 30s, healthy as far as anyone knew, young enough that no one ever expected anything to happen to him. Then one morning we came in and heard the news. Damien had died suddenly. Heart attack. The irony hit everyone at once. A guy who worked in cardiac surgery, gone from a cardiac event. No warning, no long illness. Just gone. The department felt off for weeks after that. Not dramatically, just quieter. Like something had been removed from the atmosphere, and nothing quite filled the space the same way. People mentioned him here and there, shared stories. Then gradually, like most things in hospitals, the routine took over again. But in the instrument processing area, things didn't settle the way they should have. Victoria worked closely with him. She processed instruments in the same area and had shared shifts with him for years. After he passed, she kept working back there alone most nights. A few weeks after his death, she told someone something strange. At first, she only mentioned it casually. She said sometimes, late at night, the instrument carts would shake, not roll, not shift because of uneven floors. Actually shake, like someone had grabbed them and given them a quick jolt. The first time it happened, she assumed it was vibration from nearby equipment. The sterilizers were large and sometimes made the floor hum slightly. But this was different. She described it as a sudden, deliberate movement. A quick rattling of metal trays and hanging instruments, like someone impatiently trying to get them into position. The second time it happened, she was alone in the room. She'd been standing at one of the stainless steel counters sorting instruments when she heard the unmistakable clatter of tools lightly tapping together behind her. She turned. One of the fully loaded instrument carts was shaking, not violently, just enough to make the metal tools softly clink against each other. A rhythmic movement, almost controlled. She stared at it, frozen. The cart stopped. She walked over slowly and checked the wheels. Locked. Stable. No reason for movement. She went back to work. Minutes later, it happened again. A quick, sharp shake. She later told someone she got the strangest feeling in that moment. Not fear exactly, more like recognition, like someone familiar was nearby. After that, she started joking, half serious, half not, that Damien was still coming to work. Man can't stay away from his instruments, she said once with a nervous laugh. Probably mad we're messing up his system. Some people brushed it off. Hospitals are full of weird sounds. Metal expands. Machines vibrate. Imagination fills in gaps. But Victoria insisted it kept happening. Always when she was alone. Always near the carts. Always quick, purposeful movements. Like someone checking them, adjusting them, trying to keep working. I never personally heard the carts shake, but I did have to walk through that processing area sometimes when moving between departments late at night. And once I heard Victoria's story, something about that room felt different, not dark or threatening, just occupied. The first time I walked through after hearing what she'd said, I paused near the doorway. The room was empty except for rows of instrument trays and neatly arranged carts. I felt slightly ridiculous, but I said quietly, "Hey, Damien." My voice sounded small in the stainless steel room. "Just passing through." Nothing happened. No movement. No sound. But I felt oddly respectful doing it, like acknowledging someone who might still consider that place his workspace. After that, it became a habit. Every time I went through that area alone, I'd greet him out loud. "Morning, Damien." "Evening, man." "Just coming through." Sometimes I'd give a small nod toward the instrument carts, half smiling at myself for doing it. Nothing ever shook while I was there. Nothing dramatic ever happened to me personally. But the room always felt calmer after I spoke. Victoria eventually transferred to another area. She never made a big deal out of her experiences publicly, but among those of us who worked nearby, her story stuck. A friendly guy, gone too young, still trying to do his job. In a hospital, routines run deep. People show up day after day, year after year, doing the same tasks until it becomes part of who they are. Sometimes I wonder if when someone leaves suddenly, part of them doesn't realize it's over yet. Maybe they just keep showing up. And maybe late at night, in a quiet cardiac instrument room filled with polished steel and silent machines, Damien still checks the carts, still makes sure everything is in place, still trying to do the work he never got to finish.